Richard Childress Racing is in big trouble as more and more shocking truths and negative talk about the team began to circulate inside the world of NASCAR. But what is the big issue? As we all know, Kyle Busch will no longer drive for Joe Gibbs Racing as of 2023. After 15 years, the two-time NASCAR champion left his longtime home and is set to drive for Richard Childress Racing from the next season onward. And while there are many who consider this a great move on both Kyle and RCR's front, you cannot notice that the NASCAR fans think Richard Childress Racing made a huge mistake signing the Candyman. Busch is currently nowhere near as good as a driver as he was a few seasons ago, and in 2022 he only won once. After the championship crown in 2019, he achieved only 4 victories in the following 3 seasons. And this season is not better, as in fact it has been disastrous and is one of the worst in Busch's career as he finished the championship in 13th place only. But despite the very poor results, the drop-off in performance, Richard Childress Racing decided to sign Rowdy, putting their full confidence into him. So what is it that Richard Childress sees that we don't? Why could this be one of the biggest mistakes in NASCAR history? And what secret have we uncovered that finally gives away the real truth? Let us fill you in. After a long decade and a half, Kyle Busch changed teams. The NASCAR veteran did not justify the great trust from the previous team from which he performed. Despite his great racing talent, he was champion only twice, of which his great comeback in 2015 is especially memorable, to repeat the same success in 2019. But those times are in the past. We don't live in the past anymore. Today, Kyle Busch is far from the level at which he drove a few years ago. He is often in the public eye more for incidents than for good drives, and the numbers do him no justice either. In the last 3 seasons, his best ranking was only 8th place in the general standings. But in the last race of the season at Phoenix, he managed to recover from one of his worst races ever, which he drove a week earlier at Martinsville when he was only 29th and 6 laps behind the first place. It was very difficult for him after the last race for Joe Gibbs Racing. I couldn't even look at my car to begin with because it was the last time I'm going to see it, Busch said while getting choked up after a 7th place finish at Phoenix Raceway. It's hard, man. It's not easy. Just wish it wasn't what it was or what it is. But I'm going to miss a lot of our fun folks that we got to spend a lot of time with over the years. Just looking forward to new adventures, he revealed. After another disappointing season, Busch begins a new chapter in his career with a team whose owner has had a very stormy relationship with him in the past, as both notoriously faced one another in a massive fistfight some years ago. But despite their rough past, Richard Childress Racing and their owner consider it a great honor to have Kyle Busch join their team and expect him to bring many good results. Richard Childress, the owner of this team, was NASCAR champion 6 times, but the last time was a little less than 3 decades ago when the famous Dale Earnhardt won the title for his team. Although Busch hasn't had the best results of late, Childress believes that Busch could bring the title to this team. A lot of people ask me why I'm still in this sport, Childress said, still wanting to win that next championship. Not that I haven't had the drivers to do it, not that Austin can't do it, he has 2 other championships, but it increases our odds to win that next championship for RCR. We talked about championships, Childress said. We talked about winning races. I looked him in his eyes and I saw that look, and it was Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s eyes. He's hungry. We're going to win. But many fans fear that Busch's poor form is going to carry over to RCR, with Kyle Busch unable to succeed with a much faster Joe Gibbs Racing car. If he wasn't getting any noteworthy results in a much better team, then it's really hard to expect him to get better results with a weaker team that decided to bring Busch based on his illustrious past. But the present is very different and not great at all. Busch is not a championship driver at the moment, and his new team was last in contention for the title back in 2014 when Ryan Newman finished runner-up in the championship. But it's not just the decision to hire Rowdy by RCR that seems very surprising to most fans given his recent results. What shocked most fans is that the rumor had it the 2 men absolutely hated one another ever since their violent fight. It will be interesting to see his relationship with Richard Childress, with whom he has had a very dark history caused not just by the fight, but also by incidents that Busch has had in the past with drivers of his team. If we don't look back on it, then this combination does not promise much, and it brings an equally stormy future. The public will certainly closely monitor the relationship between the current and the future member of the Hall of Fame, who has not had such a bad season since 2012, when he also took only 13th place in the NASCAR Championship. Because of such performances, he was not brought to the team whose owner has been waiting for the title for almost 3 decades. So can we expect a clash of the 2 titans anytime soon? If things don't go in the right direction, then we may see an escalation in the relationship between Busch and Childress. After an escalating series of tense moments between Busch and the then RCR driver Kevin Harvick, Childress confronted Busch after the driver had a run-in with Joey Coulter, another former RCR pilot, during the Camping World Truck Series race in 2011 at Kansas Speedway. NASCAR officials fined Childress $150,000 and placed him on a probation for the fight. But it seems the two have finally put their past behind them, as Busch was all jokes and fun when recalling the situation on the day of his signing. "Who's to say he hasn't punched me again in any of these conversations?" Busch said with laughs. "Whenever you go into negotiations, it's never fun, so you're ducking the whole time. I think you grow up and you work through things, and you talk it over. Really, it was fine the first time I sat down with him. Everything was okay. The biggest thing about it was just having an opportunity to kind of put that behind us. He and I have talked. We put all of our differences behind us a while back, and he's a great race driver. He'll land him a good ride somewhere, for sure," Childress said. "We'll soon see if RCR made the right decision when it comes to hiring Kyle Busch, and Busch believes this team can give him what he's been unable to do many times over the past 3 seasons. He scored 56 wins driving for Joe Gibbs over a decade and a half, but with his racing talent, he should have won much more than 2 titles. Now, it's a fresh start. He expects wins, but the big question is how many good things Busch can do on the track driving for RCR, which is much worse than JGR. I had to find a place where I knew I could go win races immediately. Collecting trophies is still the main reason why I get up every day and go to the racetrack in order to do this every week. Also needed a place I felt I could hit reset and could be welcomed just as I am," he continued. "This change will allow for a clean slate, and that's big for me and my family. A new team, a new teammate, new teammates, most importantly a new boss who accepts where I have been and yet can help me get to where I want to be." There are a few who believe that this decision is wrong for both Busch and Richard Childress Racing, and one of the competent people who believes that this collaboration will not be successful is NASCAR legend Kyle Petty, who believes that Kyle Busch's best results are behind him and he won't have much to offer to a new team that needs a different type of driver than Busch. Kyle Petty doesn't sugarcoat thoughts on Kyle Busch going to Richard Childress Racing in 2023. He's going to an organization that he's going to have to build. He's going to have to build it back. He's 37, 38 years old. He just passed his prime. I'm not saying he's not still in his prime a little bit, so don't hate me that bad. But his prime years were spent with Toyota and with the Gibbs organization. These are just facts. You can't deny this. The thing is, Kyle Busch needs to look at Brad Keselowski and see the year that he's having, because that may be his future more so than looking at Denny Hamlin or somebody like that and having that type of year. Petty was brutally honest as usual, but he said what a good portion of NASCAR fans are thinking and seeing. Kyle Busch's best years are behind him, and it seems his team only hired him because they believe we could see the Busch of 2015 and 2019 again, much less because they think he's truly a championship driver. His previous team didn't care too much about him, as he hasn't made a breakthrough in the past few seasons. On the contrary, he drove very poorly and there was no reason for him to stay at Joe Gibbs Racing. A replacement is ready for him in the form of a much younger Ty Gibbs, who became the champion last season, although his behavior is not commendable. Kyle Busch's career is in a steep decline. He came to a team that expects a lot from him and has a much weaker performance than his previous team. A driver who has been driving at a level that is far from championship level in recent seasons has joined a team that has not been even close to the championship title for years, and therefore, this cooperation does not promise that there could be an improvement. That really is our conclusion. It's hard to justify the two having a bright future anytime soon. But we want to know what you guys think. Do you think Kyle Busch made the right call? Did Richard Childress pick the right candidate in Busch? Are you a fan of the Candyman, or do you despise him as many do? How many wins do you think he'll rack up next season? Let us know in the comments down below. We let YouTube decide which videos you personally would enjoy watching next the most. You can see it on the screen. Did they get it right?